Have you seen this before? Where have you been?
Everywhere.
It's not the same ship anymore, and you're not you anymore.
Alarms screamed through the lab, slicing the silence with shrill urgency. Red strobes bounced off the stainless steel walls, painting the cramped space in flashes of panic. Equipment rattled in its restraints. Somewhere in the back of the shuttle, a cooling fan failed with a groan, and the temperature began to rise. Harold gripped a pair of pliers in his gloved hand, his knuckles white. "You've lost it, Abe," he said, backing toward the exit hatch. "You're not thinking straight. We have a protocol for this." Abe leaned against the central console, his eyes glassy, his breath reeking of sachet booze and coffee. "You think I don't know that?" he snapped, slurring only slightly. "I wrote the damn protocol with Weatherford before you were even tapped for this mission. You know that's not how this works." Harold's voice was firm but shaking. "Mental instability, irrational behavior, defiance of command protocol. This is a lockdown scenario. I'm supposed to sedate you." "And then what?" Abe stepped forward, his unzipped jumpsuit swaying with him. "Strap me down and run this floating coffin alone. You think you know how to operate this place without me? You don't even understand half the systems on this ship." Outside the shuttle, the stars had vanished. The ship was moving faster than light should allow, propelled by a glowing source of energy that none of them could explain. No star fields, no distant planets, only a vast, hungry darkness pressing in on every side. And somewhere else, exactly somewhere else, a second ship, identical in every detail, tore through the same void. A digital clock on the control panel read 6 a.m. In that timeline, Lieutenant Column Harold Richards sat up in his bunk, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and swung his legs to the floor. Push-ups, 20, like every morning. Then 5 kilometers on the exercise bike. Always the same. He believed in order, in repetition. It gave him purpose. Dr. Abe Anderson, on the other hand, was barely stirring. His blanket half covered his face, his feet sticking out. He finally rolled out of bed, groaning as he staggered toward the coffee dispenser. He added whiskey concentrate from a sachet tucked into his waistband. The machine beeped disapprovingly. Abe didn't care. He took a long swig, sighed, and walked away. Back on the first ship, the one with the screaming alarms, Harold stepped forward with the pliers still raised, now more out of fear than aggression. "I'm not trying to hurt you, Abe. I'm trying to follow the book. If you're compromised, the mission could fail." "The mission?" Abe said, laughing bitterly. "You mean the one where we blindly throw ourselves into the end of the universe? The one where all the bees died, the pinball machine broke, and now we sit here waiting for the edge of reality to pat us on the head and say good job. That mission? Don't make me do something I'll regret. You already have. You signed up for this." Back in the alternate ship, Harold was now in the lab, taking careful notes in his logbook. He checked the status of the bee farm, dead again, and moved to feed the electric eel. It slithered lazily through its tank as the food dropped in. He scribbled more notes, double-checked the readings on the containment field, and moved on. Abe, meanwhile, sat on the couch with sunglasses on, watching a compilation of 1980s commercials. He laughed once, maybe twice, not at the ads, but at the absurdity of it all. Harold finished his rounds and entered the viewing room, a quiet chamber with a large reinforced window. He looked out. Nothing. No stars. No galaxies. Just a smothering void. He stayed there for a long while, breathing, trying to feel something. Later that day, the two men sat side by side in the lounge. Harold nursed a protein shake. Abe was 3 sachets deep into the whiskey. "Still nothing outside," Harold muttered. "Because you're not accounting for the expansion of the universe," Abe replied without looking at him. "The edge keeps moving, so how the hell would we know if we're close or infinitely far? We're still within the scope of the mission." "Scope?" Abe scoffed. "The scope broke the moment we decided the multiverse was worth chasing." Silence hung between them. Harold stood abruptly and left. The next morning, the cycle repeated. Harold pushed himself through his disciplined routine while Abe floated in his own haze, drinking, watching static, trying on lost sunglasses. But outside, in both ships, they hurtled toward the same destination, closer each hour to something no one understood. The tension between the two astronauts would only fester. Because on this ship, Harold was starting to wonder if Abe really was seeing something no one else could. And on the other, the fight with the Pliers was only the beginning of everything falling apart. Harold's days began the same way. Body weight workout, bike, logbook. The repetition calmed him. The illusion of structure. He didn't like to think about how much of their journey was automated. He preferred the feeling of control, even if the ship was mostly running itself. That morning, the routine took him to the eel tank. The automated feeder had broken weeks ago, so now he fed it by hand. Abe told him not to, said it was dangerous, unpredictable. But Harold found peace in the ritual. The eels seemed to recognize him, or at least tolerate him. He dropped in the nutrient packet and watched it drift downward. Then his pen slipped from behind his ear, bounced off the rim of the tank, and fell in. He didn't think twice. He reached in. His dog tags brushed the water. The shock was instant, violent. His body jerked, rigid. The tank lit up with a brief, brilliant pulse. His mouth opened but made no sound. Then he collapsed, smoking slightly, sprawled across the lab floor. Lights across the ship flickered. Systems hiccuped. Abe passed out in the lounge with a sachet of whiskey still clutched in his hand, stirred awake. He blinked. The ceiling lights above him were glitching. A low drone filled the ship, one of the stabilizers trying to reinitialize. He rubbed his eyes, stood, and staggered toward the lab. There he found Harold's body. He didn't speak, didn't cry, just stood there for a long time, swaying slightly, trying to process what he was seeing. Eventually, he knelt beside him, touched his neck. Cold, no pulse. Abe sat on the floor beside the body, watching the lights blink. Minutes passed, then hours. He began talking to Harold. Small things, jokes, observations. He flipped on the monitor and played one of their old interviews from before launch. The host had asked them how they passed the time. Harold had laughed, saying they were studying the effects of zero gravity on bees. Abe had joked that all the bees died, and the results were inconclusive. They talked about the pinball machine, already broken back then. The host asked whether they thought they'd ever reach the edge of the universe. Abe had answered that they would. Not soon, not in their lifetimes maybe, but eventually. He said they'd know they were close when they saw no stars at all, only black. Abe kept playing the interview on loop. He left Harold's body in the lab for 2 full days, couldn't touch it, couldn't think. He drank, slept on the couch, woke up crying and didn't know why. Eventually, he zipped Harold into a body bag and dragged him to the airlock. He stood there, hand hovering over the lever. The protocol was clear: jettison the body. But protocol didn't feel real anymore. Nothing did. He left Harold there, half in, half out of the ship's last threshold. Then he passed out just outside the hatch. Hours later, he rolled over in his sleep, elbow clipping the lever. The hiss of decompression was immediate. Abe sat bolt upright, but too late. The hatch opened. Harold's body launched into the void, spinning slowly, then vanishing into the black. Abe didn't move for a long time. The loneliness settled in like radiation, slow, quiet, irreversible. He drank more, mumbled apologies into the empty rooms, sat in Harold's bunk, not to replace him, just to feel close. Then the ship shook. Not violently, but enough to jolt him upright. Warning lights blinked on. Abe stumbled to the viewing room. Outside, the darkness rippled. Something moved. He squinted, pressed his face to the reinforced glass. An electric eel. Massive, coiling around the ship like a goddamn sea serpent. Glowing faintly blue, its scales flashing like lightning. Its eyes met his, or at least he thought they did. "No," he whispered. "You're not real." He backed away, turned, found the whiskey. Hours later, he woke up again. Cold sweat, head pounding, TV still playing. He searched for anything that made sense. He found a photo, him and Harold mid-laugh during a test flight years ago. He clutched it like a relic. Then he played the old interview again. Abe's voice, confident, clear, almost proud, talking about the stars disappearing, about knowing they'd reached the end when there was nothing left to see. Now there was nothing left to see. That night, Abe tied wires into a crude noose, hung it from a support beam in the lounge, stood on the chair, held a picture of his wife. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I should have come home." Then the ship jerked again. The wire snapped. Abe crashed to the floor, gasping, stunned. Not dead, still here. He lay on the ground, staring up at the ceiling. His mouth tasted like metal. Then the light outside changed. A flicker, brief but unmistakable. Not the blue of the eel. Something brighter. He scrambled to the viewing room. Outside, in the far distance, the darkness cracked. Just for a second. A crack of white light. He fumbled for his sunglasses, pressed them to his face, and stared out, unblinking. The edge wasn't just near, it was here. Something was breaking, and he was the only one left to see it. 13 years earlier, in a government facility buried beneath concrete and secrecy, Dr. Weatherford stood before a panel of scientists and military officials. A large screen behind her showed a chaotic swirl of equations, space-time diagrams, and a simulation of the known universe expanding outward like a slow explosion. The man mission will not simply test the limits of our physical endurance, she said, pointer in hand. It will test the nature of reality itself. If we're right, what awaits us at the edge isn't just emptiness. It's everything. Or at least, everything else. She motioned to a younger, thinner doctor, Abe Anderson, seated at the front. Abe is an expert in marine ecosystems, particularly the relationship between neural sensitivity and environmental shifts in aquatic species. That makes him the perfect mind for this journey, sensitive to patterns, attuned to subtle anomalies. Next to Abe, Lieutenant Column Harold Richards stood tall, stoic, buzz-cut perfect. And Harold, she continued, is our pilot. A decorated Air Force veteran, he'll provide the operational backbone of this mission. Brains and brawn. A skeptical scientist near the back raised his hand. You're launching 2 men to the edge of the universe based on unproven theory and a hunch. You're risking lives for an idea. Dr. Weatherford didn't flinch. That's what science is. The risk is justified. Cameras clicked. Abe and Harold shook hands. An historic image, 2 men volunteering to cross the final border. In the present, Abe was hunched over the control panel, empty whiskey sachets scattered around him. His eyes were bloodshot. The ship creaked. Somewhere deep inside the walls, the pressure regulators ticked in and out of rhythm. He reached for his notebook. Pages filled with sketches, bees dead and contorted, Harold frozen mid-electrocution, stars vanishing, cracks of light in a sea of black. He couldn't stop drawing. The more he drew, the more he remembered things that hadn't happened yet, or had already happened, or were happening somewhere else. He saw a version of Harold putting his hand in the eel tank and dying. Then another where Harold slipped in the shower. One where Harold didn't even make it on the ship. One where Abe was the one who died. Parallel paths, same endpoints. Then a noise behind him. Harold. Not his Harold. The other one. From the other ship. Along with another Abe. They were seated at the small table, drinking from the same metallic sachets, talking, laughing like it was just another long night in deep space. Abe blinked. When he looked again, they were gone. His hand trembled as he flipped the page and drew what he'd just seen. Sometime earlier in the journey. How long ago, he wasn't sure anymore. Harold had found the notebook too. He flipped through it quietly at first, but then his face darkened. Why are there drawings of me in here? Why am I always dead? Abe didn't answer right away. He just kept looking out the viewing window into the black. Finally, he said, I started with the bees. They were dying. I drew them like they were already gone. Then they were. Harold held up a page, a sketch of his body limp, smoking beside the eel tank. This one. I've seen it. In dreams, in flashes, in other versions. You've died so many times, Harold. Sometimes by eel, sometimes by accident, sometimes by me. Harold stepped back, eyes wide. You've lost your damn mind. I'm not crazy, Abe said quietly. I'm aware. Harold didn't wait for more. He lunged at the tool rack and yanked off a pair of pliers, holding them out like a weapon. "If I find out you're planning something, if you even think about hurting me—" "I already did," Abe interrupted. "In another reality, but not this one. Not yet." Harold's hands shook. "What is this, some sick prophecy?" "It's just happening, over and over. And not just to us. Them too." Abe pointed toward the hallway. Again, Harold heard faint voices, laughter, footsteps, the sound of the other two astronauts, the ones from before, or after, or beside. He turned back to Abe. "Tell me how I die." Abe hesitated. "The eel." "Bullshit." Abe flipped to a page. It was detailed, too detailed. Harold's body, hand in the water. Dog tags dragging through the tank, sparks, light, smoke. "I didn't want to believe it," Abe whispered, "but the more I drew, the more real it got. This isn't about time, it's about versions." Harold was shaking his head, backing away. "We can still stop this. I can prove you wrong." And then he did it. Walked to the eel tank, lifted the lid, dipped his hand in. The electric shock blasted through the lab. Harold hit the ground in silence, eyes open but empty. Abe didn't scream, didn't even flinch. He wrapped the body carefully, dragged it down the hall to the airlock. This time he didn't hesitate. He pulled the lever. Harold vanished into black. Then Abe saw it. One of the drawings. Cracks of light breaking through the dark. He dropped everything and sprinted to the viewing room. Nothing. Just the same vast nothing. But it was coming. He knew it. He ran to the wire room. Sparks flickered along the walls. The ship trembled. The pliers. He'd need the pliers to cut through the emergency override panel, but they were gone. Back in the lab, he found them, still buried in Harold's chest. He pulled them free. The wound bled, and the ship kept speeding toward the edge of everything. Abe dragged the pliers down the hallway, the metal clinking softly with every step. The ship was trembling now, not violently, but in a way that felt deeper, like something pressing from the outside, something vast, something awake. He reached the wiring room, heart pounding. The walls were lined with tangled cords, blinking nodes, control fibers looping like veins. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't care. He gripped the pliers and started cutting. Sparks flew, systems failed, lights blinked out. A warning siren chirped once, then died. Outside, the darkness shifted. Not like movement, like tearing, like fabric stretched too far. Abe yanked down a mainline cable. The ship bucked sideways. Gravity surged and then vanished entirely. He slammed against the wall, floated, crashed back to the floor. A flash outside made him crawl to the nearest window. There it was. The blackness was splitting. Cracks of pure white light bled through the edges of space like fractures in glass. One opened wide enough to glimpse something behind it. He couldn't describe it. There weren't words. Just a blinding truth pouring through the cracks, a brightness so dense it almost screamed. His glasses barely helped. The ship shuddered again, then pitched hard. Abe was thrown backward, landing in the lounge. He crawled to the couch and stared at the static playing on the TV. His own face, younger, laughing in a time that no longer existed. He reached for the remote and turned it off. The ship was no longer flying. It was falling, spiraling towards something not meant to be seen. He blacked out. When he opened his eyes, he was somewhere else. A couch, soft lighting, an old sitcom playing on the TV. Abe sat up slowly. His heart raced, but his surroundings were calm, warm. He touched the fabric of the cushion beneath him. Real. Tangible. He stood, walked to the window. Trees, wind, earth. He turned around. His wife stood in the doorway. She hadn't aged. Her face was full of concern, but soft, familiar. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think so." She walked up to him and placed a hand on his cheek. He closed his eyes and leaned into it. He didn't speak. There was nothing to say. Not yet. Later, inside the house, the phone rang. Abe picked it up. A voice on the other end, "Doctor." Weatherford's sounded strange, like a memory echoing forward. "We've filled the position for the man mission," she said. "Someone else volunteered. Thank you, though." He stared at the receiver, unsure if he was dreaming. He wandered to the kitchen, opened the newspaper. Front page. 2 astronauts. Not him. Not Harold. Different names, same mission. In another universe, on another version of the ship, those 2 men were yelling. Systems failing. A wire cut wrong. Darkness rising. Then the ship disappeared into a black nothing, without sound, without trace. Abe set the paper down. Outside, the sun was rising. He stepped out into it. He wasn't sure what this world was, if it was real, if he had earned it. But for the first time in what felt like lifetimes, he could breathe without hearing the hum of machinery. He could look up and see a sky filled with stars instead of void. Whatever this was, paradise, simulation, another version, it was his. The cracks had opened, and he had slipped through.